Hi, welcome to Bathtub. It is I, the old masturbator, and we're here to do a. This is a show. This is a show. This is the Pringles. We call this the Pringles of literature because you never knew you needed this show until we started doing it. Which is Vintage Paperback SF Hodgepodge. It's not a roundup. It's a hodgepodge, and it's also called In the Footsteps of Astounding. So these kind of have merged. These two different, radically different theme shows have merged into one fabulous show, which is basically this time we're going to talk about Vintage Paperback SF, which is in the footsteps of Astounding. So that they were by writers who were really well treated or well published by the great and crazy John W. Campbell, and we really enjoyed this book many years ago, Astounding, about John Campbell and his magazine, and by Alec Navala Lee. Big fans of that book. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't read it, you should read it. We did a piece on it. It's in one of our books. And this week, I found in the past few weeks, so as usual, I don't remember anything that happened in most of these books. This is also going to have, so we're not only going to talk about Vintage Paperback SF, that is largely influenced by John W. Campbell's magazine, Astounding, or was written by writers in Astounding. But we're also going to have the elimination round. We're going to do the all important elimination round so we can clear off all the books on the shelves. The first of the books we read were influenced by, we're big fans. I told you this. I can't call it a guilty pleasure. I always really enjoyed Isaac Asimov's work when I was a kid, and going back to read him again, I still enjoy him. I don't know what it is about him. He's not as crazy as A.E. Van Vogt, but his stuff is pretty crazy, and it's kind of weirdly written, but for some reason I just think he's a fun writer, an interesting writer. Our buddy, our our bathing buddy, the old book outlaw. He's in Bath. The English have a way of saying Bath that none of us English American people can say. Anyway, he does a good show on SF over there, and we had some sort of exchange years ago where he said he really enjoyed the robot novels of Isaac Asimov. I never read them. You probably saw the movie I, Robot with Will Smith. It's kind of fun. It has nothing to do with the robot novels. It's just completely made up. It has nothing to do with the Isaac Asimov books. But anyway, he wrote a series of novels. They're kind of detective novels set in this far, far future universe where one of the characters is a policeman and the other, his partner is a robot. And what's his partner's name? Daniel? They have one of these futuristic names I can never read. The detective's name is Lige Bailey. Actually, I think this is misspelled. Lige Bailey, and then there's a guy named what's his name? Is it Daniel somebody? And he's a robot, but he's a super well made robot. So he's almost human. Anyway, The Caves of Steel. I had never read this before, and I read all the Foundation books. And the old book outlaw said this is one of his favorites of the Asimov, I think he said. And I was really fun. I really enjoyed this a lot. I'll probably read through the whole series. But the first novel is called The Caves of Steel. I think it wasn't published in Astounding. It was first published in 1954. And again, it's about a murder in this far future society. The Caves of Steel refers to this future Earth. It's a very complicated future universe. And basically on the Earth, it's become so crowded that all Earthlings live underground in these caves of steel, in these really tiny cubicles. Now, normally, and they have they share bathrooms, and there's just billions of people living underneath the Earth in these caves of steel. And the most interesting part is that they're perfectly happy down there. They don't really. It's not like a dystopia in the sense that though that's a nightmare world for them. They actually like it down there, and you can see that Asimov, who I guess I read along the way, they said that he was a claustrophile. He liked being in small spaces. It's a word I never heard of, claustrophile. Anyway, they're all pretty happy down there, except somebody commits a murder, and I forget why. They're spacers, and they've been traveling all over the universe, and they've come back to Earth, and they like being outside. And I don't want to say too much more about it, except that for some reason he makes this work about the robot and this futuristic society, and who's the murderer has to do with Who Wants to Take Over the Universe or something. I forget how it's solved, but I had a great time reading it. And the relationship between this robot and Lige Bailey is great. I read this. I liked it so much. I actually read the sequel, The Naked Sun. Did I find some passages to read out loud? I should try to find. I should probably try to find a passage. Do I have a good passage to read? Probably not. Anyway, this is where he goes. Lige Bailey goes off. He goes off to outer space to help solve another murder, and it's a murder on a planet where no one's ever been murdered before. And of course, somebody's been murdered for the first time in millions of years, and he goes to help solve that murder. And I forget this one. I didn't remember it quite as well as I remember the first one. I read it second, and I don't remember it very well. Do I pick a quote? I don't really know what to read out of it. It's kind of hard to read him in sections, but anyway, Isaac Asimov. He's not just for the teenagers in us that we love science fiction. Though there's some of that is appealing to us. I do like him, and I like these two books a lot. The Puppet Masters. I always wanted to read the Puppet Masters. I think I've talked about this before. Cheers. We're still in our post-tech period, and we're not doing any booze when we do these stupid shows. This is the Puppet Masters. Heinlein was, like Asimov, one of the most important writers for John Campbell, and John Campbell brought these guys along and used them as much as he could, and they worked very well with him for decades. And this is the closest thing to it's like the Body Snatchers, really. They made a movie of this, which was kind of fun with Donald Pleasance. Not Donald Pleasance, the other one, the other Donald, who about basically it's the aliens who come down and they're big lumpy things and they get on your back and they basically take over people who look. It's another 50s communist metaphor that these friends of yours who look like your friends have been taken over by this communist creature, and their lumps are taking over parts of the earth, and it's about a bunch of guys. As usual, as very often happens in Heinlein, the central character is a detective or a spy or whatever, and his boss is his father. The relationship between kids and their fathers in Heinlein is very weird and very twisted and kind of scary sometimes, because the fathers are often fascistic characters. If you think of Farnham's Freehold, a lot of these guys are kind of horrific. But anyway, this guy is supposed to be a good guy. And there's a quote I wanted to read here about the communist element. Okay, I'll just read a brief bit. So basically, the aliens have taken over the Earth, and it's obviously a metaphor for communism. It's page 108. Some nations were safe through their own customs. A Finn who did not climb into a steam bath in company every day or so would have been conspicuous. So one of the rules they pass in this world is everyone has to take their clothes off, including the women, which the guys in this like quite a bit. So they have to be naked so you can see the lumpy communist on their back. The Japanese, too, were casual about undressing. The South Seas were relatively safe, as were large parts of Africa. France had gone enthusiastically nudist, on weekends at least, right after World War III. A slug, the aliens, would have a tough time hiding, but in countries where the body modesty taboo meant something, a slug could stay hidden until his host began to stink. The United States itself, Canada, England, most particularly England. They flew 3 slugs with apes to London. I understand the king wanted to set an example, as the president had, but the prime minister, egged on by the Archbishop of Canterbury, would not let him. The archbishop had not even bothered to look. Moral behavior was more important than mundane peril. Nothing about this appeared in the news, and the story may not be true, but English skin was not exposed to the cold stares of neighbors, so the English would like to take their clothes off. The Russian propaganda system began to blast us as soon as they had worked out a new line. The whole thing was an American imperialist fantasy, and of course the Russians are the perfect place for these aliens to take over. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and I think I've said this before. When I was a kid, I didn't really read any Heinlein. I found him kind of annoying, and something about that weird totalitarian. He's got affection for totalitarian fathers and bosses. which which I didn't find very interesting. Anyway, finally, we read those things as our vintage. I've always wanted to read Alastair Reynolds, and this is going to be a very what can I tell you? This is going. I don't listen to me to some extent because many of you love modern SF. I stopped reading SF after 70s and 80s. There's a few exceptions. We talked about people like Paul McCauley and certain SF writers who I will still read. And I've been hearing great things about Alastair Reynolds' Revelation Space. If you like big galaxy-spanning soap opera, space operas, then Alastair Reynolds and Werner Vinge are the two that many people love today. I read this. It's pretty long. It's part of a big future history series. It's extremely imaginative. It reminds me, it's like Ringworld, only Larry Niven. That's the stuff I read when and I'll reread some of that stuff. It's this future galaxy-spanning universe, and people are living in this place called Chasm City, and there's all sorts of people who are biologically engineered, and all sorts of. It's a very, very lot of plot, a lot of characters, a lot of different things happening. I read it a few weeks ago, and I stopped reading about halfway through it. This is not a criticism of the writer, because I think he's a very good writer, a lot of fun. It was almost too many. It was just too many ideas for me, and I just kind of lost my oomph for this book. Anyway, I can't remember more. So anyway, this is the one we're gonna actually try to clear off the space. I think this guy's a very good writer, Alastair Reynolds. If you like modern SF, you should probably definitely try him. And it was very well written all the way through, and a lot of adventure, a lot of great ideas, some really brilliant visual ideas of this future universe. And I'm decided I'm not gonna read much more of that. So I'll move that we'll put that into the outbox. But we will keep reading all the old stuff, such as these. All right, okay. Stay safe. Again, I don't mean this to be a criticism thing, but I got to clear some books out, and there's lots of wonderful writers who are better off without me. Okay, stay safe.